Hi everyone, it's Carolyn here for this week's email video, and I have a sweater on and I'm freezing. We had our first frost last night in Iowa, and I'm like, oh, this can't be yet already, and I'm just frozen. But anyway, I hope you're staying warmer than I am, even though many of us are going into our fall and winter season, I realize. So today I want to talk about something that came into my awareness after this weekend. And it's been there because I've seen things shift and change for me with respect to this topic, but I had some, I guess I would say, reminders of things on my journey that I've experienced. And so I thought I'm going to talk to them about you, and it's habits. Things we get ourselves into that are just part of our kind of either our day-to-day or our patterned way of life. And that as we go through this awakening journey, things change. But I want to talk a little bit about what happens when it doesn't stick. So I'm going to share a little bit about that today as well. But first of all, what I do want you to know, and many of you already understand this, but a lot of you will find that your habits are going to change and shift during your awakening journey. And some of them are incredibly profound, where you feel as though this is just a part of who you are, but yet it no longer serves you. And your higher self is going to be poking at you to let you know it doesn't work anymore for you. Now, that can come in all forms. First of all, I'm going to talk about how you can actually request that. That's how it's worked with me. Secondarily, you're just going, oh, I have chills. I just got chills. As many of you know from working with me or watching my videos, I'll get full body chills when I get a confirmation of something that I've just said. So it's kind of neat. Anyway, needless to say, so habits can be hard to shift and change, but to my point, your higher self is going to start leading you down a path of making those changes, some of which have become completely patterned in your life and you haven't even questioned them, but that they're, like I said earlier, they're no longer serving you, and maybe they never were good for you in the first place, but you've kind of turned a blind eye toward it and not really thought about the impact that it has. So I'm going to talk about a couple things that have occurred with me. You're all going to have your own. And also I'm going to talk to you about what happens when it doesn't stick. So first and foremost, for me, one of what I would call my habits, and it wasn't a daily habit, but it got into a habit after I quit my job, was, and I've always liked red wine. For years, I've liked red wine. And what's interesting is, and I think many of us know this, that the feeling of drinking alcohol is not what it used to be, particularly as we go through this awakening process. That may be one thing that we shift into the awareness of saying, ooh, that doesn't feel right anymore. And for me, it has to do with vibration. It just doesn't match for me anymore. But I used to drink red wine like crazy. I loved it. And, it's not like I drank a ton of it, but on weekends, I would have my red wine. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that, because I still, on occasion, have drinks, like I did this weekend when I went home to visit my family. And, that was fun and everything, but it got me thinking about this. So for me, red wine, okay, this was a thing for me, and I started feeling like it wasn't resonating with me. So what I did, this was so interesting. This is about 2 years. Yeah, it's exactly 2 years ago. Right about now, I said, hey, spirit team, because I'm in connection with my spirit team. And I said, angels, guides, I really don't want to drink red wine anymore. I don't want to have any enjoyment from it at all. And I could do that on my own, but it's easier when you have your spirit team helping you. Because honestly, I said to them, I want you to shut the spigot off of even any wanting to have that in the sense of that taste for it, okay? I want it to taste icky when I do, or if I do drink, because I wanted my vibration to continue to rise, my gifts to continue to open up, and me just to even feel better. So I've always been very healthy, and I've always watched what I eat and do, but I've kind of fallen off the tracks lots of times during the awakening. And so I thought, you know what? The red wine thing, I don't need that anymore. So anyway, I put that out there, and I'm not kidding you. It was, like I said, right about now, I just kind of threw that out there. And then got through the holiday season, really never even thought about it again. And suddenly, I'm not kidding you, in January, I remember trying to think if I was out or what, because I would usually order, if I would go out, I would order a glass of wine or two. And so what I would do, what I did then was, I think it was, I ordered a glass of wine and I went to taste it. This is the New Year, and New Year's are really significant for me. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I had just, drank gasoline. And maybe that's what my body started to think of it as, that it was, not in a great way suiting me any longer. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wine. It's just, for me, I knew that it wasn't something that I was wanting to continue with. I'm not kidding you. For somebody who was a red wine drinker for years, all of a sudden, I didn't want it anymore. And I went that whole year, I think it was, of 2017, never having a glass of wine because I didn't even desire it. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating when you bring your spirit team in and you're wholeheartedly wanting this thing to happen. And you better want it because it'll happen. Be ready. Be ready for the thing that you ask for to shift and change. And when it did, I was like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. So needless to say, I remember last year, a year after that happened, I tried a glass of red wine for whatever reason, and it still tasted horrible because I'm kind of an experimenter, so I like to try and test things, and I did. And that didn't work. So I still, to this day, I don't drink red wine. I don't drink wine anymore. I think I might have had a glass of, I think it was a wedding or something recently, and it was white wine, but it was so interesting, this major shift that's come over me. But what can happen for you during these times of awakening is you may go through, I got lucky because, in the sense of, it's just the spigot turned off, I was no longer interested in wine. But if you fall off the train, okay, whatever it is, let's say you, you're eating too much sugar, all right, and you decide you want to stop doing that and not have sugar altogether, or candy, let's just say candy, because some people are really addicted to sugar. And either you do it on your own or you work with your spirit team during the awakening, because the awakening, it does bubble up. These are things that your body and your higher self are going to say. It's going to be in your face like, no, you need to be a healthier version of yourself, and hello, let's think about this. You'll get synchronicities, all of that. Or you may just have no desire anymore. I've seen people have no desire to just stop partying or going out, all of that, and then their habits go by the wayside. The things that aren't the greatest for us. Maybe not that are, addictions or things that are necessarily bad for us, just things that no longer serve us. So needless to say, what I really want to emphasize in this video, though, is when you fall off the new patterned way of living, in other words, let's say you all of a sudden dive into a bag of M&Ms or whatever your weakness is, a bag of chips. Like, that's another thing for me. I know that it's no longer served me, and never did, to go and buy a whole bag of chips and eat them before I get home. I'm not kidding you. I can do that. And I was like, what is coming over me? So I will actually have a conversation with my higher self, my body, and my mind, standing in the mirror, and I will say, okay, I know this isn't my body necessarily wanting that, although there are times when your body wants something and you just need to eat it. But it's one of those things where it starts to become a patterned habit, which is what happened with me with these crazy chips. And so I knew that it was I don't want to say it, the human me wanting to dive into those chips and, cover up something that I didn't want. Or maybe it was the fact I've gained weight and I just didn't care anymore for that moment, right? So it's kind of uncovering all these layers of things that we start seeing that no longer serve us, and those habits start dying off. But the point is when they come back, because they will lots of times, oh my gosh, the other day you won't believe what I did. So the wine thing has stuck, okay, which is really cool. But the chip thing has not. The other day, I went and I bought 2 bags of these amazing salt and vinegar chips. I started eating them in the car, and I was like, what am I doing? So I became consciously aware, right? In the past, I just would unconsciously do this and just eat them and be gone and done and not think about it, right? And then feel kind of crummy afterwards. But in the awakening, what will start to happen is you become more consciously aware of the things that really you're fighting against, okay? That your mind, body, and soul are putting out in front of you and that you become more aware of it that just doesn't serve you, okay? So I had these chips, and all of a sudden I was like, no. So I stopped at the, I'm not kidding you, I stopped at the nearest, I think it was gas station, and I took out the bag that wasn't even opened and the other one that I had half eaten, and I threw them in the trash and I drove off. I like, we're done with that. We are not doing that anymore. But what I did to myself after this is what I want you to learn is I shamed myself. Oh my God, it felt awful. I shamed myself for probably the next day, which doesn't serve me. And so here's the thing, is what we have to realize, and we're so good at doing this to ourselves, beating ourselves up, right? Especially if we're high achievers and we really have always wanted to reach our goals. Well, guess what? We can be harder on ourselves than the next person. And so keep that in mind too, is if you're always been super goal oriented and you fall off the wagon of whatever it is that you've shifted and changed within the awakening, don't shame yourself, because shaming yourself is just making it worse. And then you're more likely to go do it again. So it's this vicious cycle. So instead, what they said to me as I was going through this battling of myself of eating this half bag of chips and just shaming myself and then making everything else in my life feel horrible. I mean, not to that, that's kind of extreme, but I was feeling that way. I heard them say to me, don't shame yourself, change yourself. And I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to hear that, because it's true. It's like, okay, the thing happened. I fell off my don't eat chips wagon. And then what I did when I did it, instead of saying, okay, I did that, I'm human, let it go and move on. Oh no, I just beat myself up and it was worse and I felt awful and I kind of wanted to go get the bag of chips again. So don't shame yourself, change yourself, because during the awakening journey, you're going to have a lot of things that your body doesn't want to necessarily do anymore or start to do, okay? So you can have the flip side of that too, where your body and your mind and your soul, you're driven to, and I'm just going to throw an example out. Maybe exercise, like get out in nature and exercise it and do more in the outdoors. But then suddenly you may find yourself going a week not having done any exercise at all if you're not used to that. You know, you're working into a new habit, but your mind, body, and soul is really wanting that. But then you say, oh, I'm no good. I can't do this. This isn't going to work because look what I've done. For a week, I haven't done anything. No. It's okay. You know, just like they say with anything when people are on diets, which I don't really subscribe to diets, but point is diets are a great example. You know, when they say, you know, when you fall off that wagon of, you know, one day of eating badly, don't just go back to your old habits. Continue the path forward and know that the next day you can begin again, because there's always that new day for you to not shame yourself, but change yourself. We always have that new day. So during the awaken, you will find, and I do want to emphasize this, is to be able to reach out to your spirit team, your angels and your guides. If you don't have a relationship with them, you know I talk a lot about this. Begin in small ways, start talking, even if you feel like you're talking to the air. You're not, they hear you, and then begin that relationship, because they're at a high vibe, and as you continue to high vibe with them, they're going to come along. They're going to assist you in those changes. If you're serious about what you want to do, and yeah, it may come in fits and starts, you will see your habits change. You will see things start to shift and change. So today, I've started something new. I have started to really focus on trying to lose some of this weight that I've gained, because I'm not happy about it, all right? And I have been shaming myself, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm starting today, and I have some new practices I'm going to implement. I know that I don't eat enough vegetables, and my diet has been pretty lousy since the awakening. You would figure it would have been the opposite, but it's not for me. So now I'm focused on that, okay? No more bags of chips. But if somehow that happens again, I'm going to have an awareness, and I'm not going to shame myself. I'm going to keep changing myself, because we always have that new day to make a difference. And I will let you know how this continues on and moving forward, because this can be such a struggle as we go through the awakening of wanting to become a higher version of ourselves. And so much has to do with habits that we've had over time. And some of them we don't even understand. Our habits and things that you will start getting put into your awareness and that no longer service, and then you'll be on the journey forward to make those shifts and changes. So anyway, I just wanted to share my journey with you and some of the things that have happened for me along the awakening journey. And I wish you well in the changes of your habits that you wish to either start or no longer have in your life. So again, thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in next week's video.